So welcome everyone. I hope you've had a wonderful day of sessions, really informative, made some great connections. We're excited to kick off our last session with Priscilla McKinney. Just a couple things I just went over. I'll just reemphasize that considering we're in Zoom now, just post all of your Q&A directly in the chat box, and we'll make sure to address that after her session. Once she's done presenting to us, we really open this up to just a casual conversation. Feel free to turn on your videos and chit chat with Priscilla and other attendees. All right, and the happy hour is to follow directly after using this link. So feel free to just stay here and chat with us more around today's insightful learnings and what we're going to expect tomorrow as well. So with that, a quick introduction of Priscilla. She's the CEO and resident mama bird who leads a team of creative peeps at Little Bird Marketing. I love that, Priscilla. She's a blogger and host of Ponderings from the Perch, a modern podcast for the modern entrepreneur, where she discusses the truth about entrepreneurship, marketing best practices, managing creatives, company culture, and all other marketing oddities. Priscilla personifies creativity, entrepreneurship, and authentic leadership, inspiring others to truly carve out their own path of success in her uniquely funny, no nonsense, and slightly irreverent way. This is so on point. She continually offers a fresh perspective about using technology to innovate in a clear a faster way to results based directly on each client's expressed goals. I hope that I did well announcing you, Priscilla. Take it away.
Awesome. Okay, well, let me get to my screen share here, and we'll just do the actual technical things we need to do, and I think we'll be in good shape. So are we good there? All right.
You are good.
Sounds good. So as you notice in there, there's a word that I'd like for you to have heard from my profile. As I've kind of been known to talk about authenticity here and there. So I thought I might make a little, poke a little fun at myself today and give you some of my thoughts about the case against authenticity today, building your personal brand. So, in our day-to-day, think Martha Stewart, think Joanna Gaines, whatever, immediately you know that personal and professional brands are intermingling, they're melding in a way that we hadn't seen in the past. And the case for personal brands is an interesting one when I'm talking with professionals when you're not the face of a company. Everybody starts thinking, oh, well, then that doesn't apply to me. And practically speaking, if you're not actually engaged in building your personal brand, in crafting it, in creating it, and putting it out there, the reality is that one is being assigned to you. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today. And I thought that I would try and, like I said, I'm poking a little bit of fun at myself, but I thought I would try and poke you a little bit and challenge you about a mindset shift you might be able to have today about getting on social and really building a personal brand that will work for work, okay? So when, let me make sure I have my clicker correct here. All right. So this slice of successful business women is, I'm sure, immediately recognizable to you. They are the front of house to powerful brands. And I know in the chat, you could go ahead and start calling these people out, and feel free to. When I'm on these sessions, I'm in chat talking and chatting back and forth with each other. That does not faze me at all. So make sure that you are engaging with people. But these successful brands are household names, really. And you distinctly know them for their personal brand, but you also know that right behind them is a professional brand. And so the line is already blurred. And as we see these personal and professional brands become more intertwined, we can look at it and go, well, that's exciting. Maybe you think that's sexy. It's like so cool to talk about. I love it. But if you're not the face of the company and you're not building an empire, really, what should we do? But I want to remind you that the truth is that we're all selling something. And what we present to the world is really all they have to go on to make an assessment about our competency and guess maybe even about what it is we stand for, what we believe, what we can do, how we even go about things, how we approach thinking, how we can innovate, where we stand in our career. So we're all motivated by different personal brand aspirations, and we're all living by selling a particular version of ourselves to others. And I would argue that maybe some of us are also living by maybe trying to sell that particular version of ourselves to ourselves, right? But I want you to think for just a minute, to make this meaningful, about what it is that you are selling to your boss, to your coworkers, to your potential clients, or even maybe a potential employer, a potential, even if it's an employer, of changing a different department. So I think we all know we can go right to the cut to the chase of personal branding. It's not all about looks. And our society may be really hung up on the outward appearance, but when you deliver on personal brand, there's something more. There's something a little deeper. There's something in the ethos, and there is a brand promise. And you might not have thought about a brand promise outside of your actual company, but you do have one for yourself. So think about that for a moment about your colleagues. Can you think of some of the personal brands that you see at work every day? Think about people that are on your team. Some people have that personal brand to deliver on total competency, maybe the cutting edge of innovation. Some people are so incredibly collaborative, or maybe even sophisticated. Those are a lot of positive ones. What about the lone wolf that you have? There's always one in the bunch, right? But I guess my question is, what do you want to be known for, right? What do you want people to say about you? What do you want people to, to tie to what you're about to deliver to them? So the first thing that usually professionals say to me is, well, Priscilla, there's no point in having a personal brand. I don't have a personal brand. I don't need a personal brand. And I say, well, of course you do. It's just that you have not intentionally or carefully built it. That's possibly true as well. But I will tell you this, if you don't choose one for yourself, that failure to make a choice is actually a choice in itself. And I don't know if anybody remembers this scene from The Devil Wears Prada. But this scene here is, I just love this look on Meryl's face too. In this scene, Anne Hathaway's character is really exposed in the moment because she comes in kind of a lofty, maybe a haughty, feeling that she's really beyond personal brand. She's beyond caring about something as silly as a fashion statement. And she really mistakenly thought that by not making a choice, that she was just above it all. But in this scene, which I happen to love, but she goes on to show her out, actually the sweater that she's wearing was chosen for her, since she refused to actually make a choice. And it was actually found in a bargain bin in which she found it and then put it on. And it's a funny scene, but I think that what's important here is that Anne Hathaway's character in this perceives that she made a choice. But the choice to not choose was, in fact, the choice, although a passive one. So I guess my question to you about personal brand is, if you haven't decided on that personal brand, I guarantee you one has been assigned to you. And that might be the work that you need to do, because we all know we're social scientists in this room. We know that humans are interacting in the world and categorizing us by the look, the feel, the experience, that promise that we deliver. And we get that as insights professionals and sociologists when we're talking about consumers, but then sometimes we fail to actually bring that over and make a connection of how that actually works for us personally. And your lack of controlling that brand building is actually not keeping anyone from developing one from you. And it makes me think of that line from John Lennon, where he says, life is what happens to you while you're busy making plans. And I kind of liken that to personal brand. Your personal brand is the thing that's being built while you're busy imagining that you don't need to build one. Of course, who here wants to be authentic? You heard it in my bio. Like I said, I'm poking fun at myself a little bit, but everybody's like, I want to be authentic. I want to live authentically. It's the rise of the human. It's the, getting down to the raw, who we are. And authenticity is really a big buzzword. And I get what people mean when they say they want to live authentically, but I want us to get really clear about what that is. Yes, we want to show up as our true selves in the world, in meaning and in context, but I think all of us right now might be a little, even Tiffany and I were talking about it right before we started the presentation. We all might be just a little bit maybe fatigued by some of the authenticity that we're experiencing, authenticity on Zooms in professional meetings in this socially distanced world. And I guess I want to ask you, are we really showing up authentically? Is that the standard? Is that what we should be basing things off? Because my question to you about being yourself is, how does that tie to authenticity? Where do we land here with personal brand? Just so we're clear, this is my authentic self. So if you've known me for a long time, you've probably received many, many, many of these because I find them completely hilarious. But this is how I wake up in the morning. This is my authentic self. I'm gonna show it to the world. And, you know, the reality is, you know, I don't come to work this way. I don't show up in the world this way. I provide a public service. So this is what the world gets. This is what the world gets. And I guess all I can say is you're welcome. So, but the phrase that we need to grapple with is, what does it mean then to build an authentic personal brand? It's in our vernacular now. And so I think we need to make sure that we're talking about, we don't want to be fake, but I don't know that we want to be authentic. So let's kind of take a step back. When you Google your name, which I would love for you to do, Google it and see what comes up. And I got to tell you, 9.9 out of 10 times LinkedIn will come, because your LinkedIn profile comes up because LinkedIn has a lot of domain authority, right? And then what's going to come next is all of the scrapable data, right? So anytime you're on a public, non-gated type of a forum, then Google can scrape that information. That's what's going to come next. So if you happen to be on Twitter, which is a completely public forum, you're going to have Twitter, you're going to have podcasts, you're going to have blogs. Do you show up in the news? And for those of you who don't have an outlet like that, LinkedIn is going to be probably the only lifeline here out on Google. And while you're free to build your personal brand outside of social and get the reach going, I've got to tell you, there's no quicker way to build a brand for you personally as a professional than to go on social. Social is natural. It is something that we're already doing in the rest of our lives. There's no doubt that social has fundamentally changed the way we live and work. It's also not bound to generations anymore. And it's something we're already used to using. There's not technology that needs to be overcome there. It's big, it's global. When you think about there being 7.8 billion people on this planet and 4 billion of them are active social media users. So take out the very young, the very old. I mean, basically what we're saying is that everybody is on social. That's where they're congregated, right? It's also incredibly cost effective. Yeah, I gotta tell you, I'm like on about, 210 episodes of podcasts, and there's a lot of people on here on this chat right now who have done a lot of other efforts in PR or marketing or podcasts, and that's not cheap. Right? So the cost effectiveness of social and using LinkedIn to leverage your personal brand is amazing. It's also credible. And I know that this is for good or for ill at different times, but the reality, we know this also as research and social scientists, is that LinkedIn and Twitter, in fact, are incredibly credible. I'm not saying that's the best thing, but I'm telling you that's what we can leverage. And for intents and purposes in what we're discussing today, that's super important. So this is social is where the audience is already congregated. So what are the benefits to you? As far as in your career as the employee, if you're not the front of house, like we're talking about, these big empire building brands, the reality is there are a lot of benefits to you very carefully carving out this identity. You can be recognized for a promotion, land a speaking gig, uplift actually the rigor of the field. I was talking to someone a couple of days ago, and they were talking about how their passion is actually to really accelerate and influence the improvements that can happen in this industry. I love hearing that. To me, that's such a great brand promise from you personally as a professional. There's also personal growth that you could get out of it. Personal growth that is an extension of yourself beyond your core job. And I got to tell you another example. This just happened to me the other day. We were in the chat of an industry event, And, you know, we were discussing, you know, some things that were going on in MRX world, but then someone, you know, kind of raised their hand and said, hey, you know, I want to do a passion project. I have a nonverbal child. I have some time on my hands. I'd really like to do a great piece of pro bono work for, you know, for market research for someone who is helping families with children with autism. I'm like, oh, I know exactly the person for that. And being able to make those connections can be really powerful, and be able to have a brand that people recognize you for certain things. They know they can come to you either as a connector, or you've established your brand, and so people know how to interact with you. That can be really powerful for your own personal goals outside of your profession. But for the employer, there's also some great benefits. Obviously, there's credibility for the brand that can happen. You're increasing the reach for sure, because if you're not only increasing reach to professionals, but P.S., you know, professionals are consumers too, right? So we're increasing our brand reach. We also can increase the share of voice of thought leadership, and that is really important to companies. And companies can sit all they want on LinkedIn profiles and marketing messages, and, you know, just broadcast and broadcast and broadcast their messages. But unless it's delivered by people who have some gravitas and have a group and have a brand, it really is not going to go as far when it's delivered just by the company. Also, one thing that gets overlooked about really carefully spending the time to have team members carve out a personal brand is that it is a really effective way of attracting the best and brightest out there, right? So I don't think of social media anymore when I'm sitting down and I'm interviewing someone for a position. Do not mistake that they are not also interviewing your company through your social media channels, because they are. That is absolutely what is happening anymore. That is an effective way of using social media to attract and even retain the best and brightest. So a lot of professionals are actually shy about telling others what they do or getting started. And the questions to me are always, well, if I want to build a personal professional brand, where do I start? So as you build your brand online, the very first place that you would go is your LinkedIn profile. And this is like an introduction. I liken it to the introduction at a cocktail party. And I guess my question for you, whether it's on LinkedIn, these are samples out of LinkedIn, but whether it's in LinkedIn or in Twitter, I have a couple of questions to think about. And that is, do I really know something about you, something qualitative about you? What are you great at? What gets you going in the morning? How do you see things? How do you approach problems? How do you see your role? And as you look down in your profile, it starts with this summary line. And so we'll kind of look at a few of them here. I love this from Trisha Houston. She's a status quo defying human with a flair for finding patterns to close experience gaps. I love that from Trisha. Those people who have contacted or connected with me already know that mine is a slightly annoying truth teller powered by my husband's homemade bread. So this is like a blend of personal and professional, right? But you can see a lot of great examples here, and certainly you can crib from them, but you really need to think for yourself. You know, how does your profile, does your first line actually do anything to make me want to actually talk with you? And I really think about it. For years, I've used the cocktail party analogy. At the cocktail party, we're not looking to be robotic or get all of our ducks in a row, but we want to make connections. And that is a big part of building your personal brand. You need to show up to be inviting. You need to be welcoming. You need to be approachable, and you need to be memorable. So I just invite you to look through your summary title and look through the rest of your profile, especially on LinkedIn, and really ask yourself, is this really giving a fair shake to who you are? It doesn't have to be silly or whimsical. Some people don't like to go there. If that's not your personality, I'm not asking someone to do that. I am trying to help you to make sense of how you're actually presenting yourself to the world. So the next thing that people say to me is, yeah, that's really great, but I don't know what to write. And I don't know what to say. If I were to say something, I've got to post something, but I don't even know what to do. And the excuses that I get right off the bat are, number one, Number one, I don't know what to write. I don't have anything to write. It all comes in all kinds of forms. And then secondly, this is always number two. And I don't want to come off as slimy or salesy or preachy or gross or right? All this stuff. It all comes next, whatever word you were going to put in there. I'm not trying to be cute, but most of the time I say to those two, questions or those two excuses, I say, number one, you've already written a million things. I mean, how many emails do you write a day? How many, research, proposals have you written? How many case studies have you written? How many, that we all have stuff that we've written. The second thing is, if you don't want to be slimy, salesy, preachy, or self-centered, then just don't be. Just because a lot of people are doing that kind of ridiculousness online does not mean that you need to. And so it won't make you guilty by association, I promise you. But Dale Carnegie, said, if you want to be interesting, be interested. And I kind of was thinking about that along the lines here, also with the cocktail party analogy. Sometimes we don't know what to say or what to write, but sometimes we could just be interested in what other people are doing. So like the cocktail party, we don't really like to hang around with the person who just jabbers about themselves. It goes on and on. And I got to tell you, teaching these things virtually is really hard for me because I'm a very conversational person. And so to have to be just talking nonstop for 30 minutes is there's a part of me, I have to get over it. I have to kind of get used to it, right? But we like to keep that in mind when we're thinking about our profiles and our posting as well, because it needs to be natural. We need to be giving some space for some other people. So there's a 411 method. I'm just going to give you a couple tricks and we're going to show you a couple of examples and we'll open it up to some questions, because I know everybody's going, yeah, that sounds great and I'm in, I want to build a personal brand, but I just don't know what to do next. So we want to give people the information. When you start posting, you need to actually think about the actual pace, or maybe the makeup, how you're going to make a good mix of the post that you make. So I like to use this as an anchor. It's 411, give them the information. So you want to create 4 posts that are curated, okay? And by curated, I mean, you didn't have to create them. Just share them from someone else, find an amazing thought leadership piece, maybe even find a great podcast episode. You know where you can find one of those. But in this way, what I'm saying is that you can take the pressure off yourself and you can actually go share something that's interesting. Show up to that party and be interesting, have something to talk about, right? And then the next one is something that is really collaborative. So it's something that shows that you're interested. You've been listening. What do people need? What do they want? And let me actually help you. Some good suggestions about this are things like product or tool review, maybe even connecting 2 people in a shout out. I like to do that with Joanna. I see her on the line here. We'll shout out to each other because game respects game, right? There's something really beautiful about that online when we can be collaborative. So we want to be interested in what other people are doing. Guides or checklists or even blogs that are very prescriptive, very helpful, overtly helpful. 7 ways to do this, 3 tools that I use to do this, 2 considerations about a methodology that really blew my mind, whatever it is, but something that is shows that you have what I call the sandbox effects, that you can play well with others, right? And then for that 1, you get one chance. You get that one chance to brag on something, celebrate something, or tell us something, because that's not weird. At some point, we want to know what you do. We want to celebrate something with you, but you just can't be sitting there being, a bragger. And that's what keeps people away from showing their true personal brand out on social media. So if they just follow the 411 rule, that will also help. So what I kind of wanted to nudge this is to say, don't focus on being authentic. Focus on being carefully curated. Focus on actually saying not the thing that comes to your mind, but the thing that you carefully crafted so that you can actually put out the brand that you want to convey. And you want to, like we said with the cocktail party, be welcoming, be approachable, and be memorable, right? So a lot of professionals give up because online it's just a lot of shouting and what I would call broadcasting and blah, blah, blahing. But really what we want to do is move this down in our mindset to narrowcasting. You want to find your tribe, find groups that care about what you care about, find groups that have problems that you can solve, that your personal brand delivers on, and carefully curate that group. And so instead of broadcast, which is what a lot of people do with social media, you're going to think only about narrowcasting. So I'm going to jump into some examples so that we can get a little bit of Q&A, but I just wanted to highlight a couple of things that work, that are easy, and then I'm going to highlight some real successes I saw out there. So the easiest thing to do, like just take, for example, ask your target market. With this conference going on, you can connect with all the speakers because it's actually out there in public domain. You want to make sure that you can connect with everybody there, but you also want to do a shout out. And especially when you're looking at other nonprofits, this is a good example of what you can do for nonprofit industries that are in your, nonprofit organizations that are in your industry who really need some people to come around and help. Use their gravitas and use, give a little piece of their carefully crafted brand that people respect to their event or to what they're doing. So this is one way that's super easy. You can get involved in social media and not feel like you're being disingenuous. Also, I loved this. This is a great success for my friend Mario Xavier Carrasco. He's highlighting insights in color coming up. The beautiful thing about this post, besides what it is and what they're doing, is that it also provides an opportunity to tag a lot of individual people. And so I just like to remind people, what do people like to talk about? Themselves. So when you want to build a personal brand, make sure that what's included in that is a lot of talking about other people, because that kind of action reciprocates. There's a lot of good, karma in that. And the nice thing about this is that instead of just one person seeing it or a few of Mario's followers, now everybody who's been tagged in this, their followers and their followers' followers have a chance at seeing this. So that's what I really, really love about this one. To me, this is like the pure gold. And I gotta say, I pulled this several weeks ago, but it has gone on and on since, and it is really, to me, the gold standard of what an insights professional could really accomplish. So check this out. Congrats, Diageo teams, partner agencies, and everyone else. Oh my gosh, this is like thanking everybody. It's not being selfish in any way, shape, or form. And so you can see from here, I mean, come on, that's gold, right? The next thing is I saw Stephanie Robotham actually put something up about her boss. I saw she put something up about something really amazing that they're doing internally at their company that shows that they are leading the way in some initiatives. And I thought that was a really easy way to really showcase their personal brand, which is about customer experience and employee activation. I love this from my friend pollster Adam Dietrich. This is interesting. I'm going to go the opposite way. He talks about himself in this tweet. So I've been the guy behind the scenes for all this time, and now my thing got picked up. Isn't this so awesome? Well, let me assure you, it is awesome, and everybody wants to cheer for you. But the reason why is because the rest of his posts are almost always cheering for other people, and they're talking about his brand and congratulating his colleagues and really showing what it is he's doing in methodology. So the last one I'll show you here is from someone at Spoiler Alert, and they really did a nice shout out to an actual client. So this is another approach that you can do to show who you are as a person, who you are as a professional, and get online in a way that makes people want to interact with you. So I'm going to end with this thought. I think I'm going to die on this hill. I really believe that collaboration is the new competition. So if you came into this thinking that I've got to develop a personal brand and it's going to be me, 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 that is just not going to work. And I feel like, if you consider developing a personal brand that actually helps others and is clear about how you're open for collaboration, I think you can form a tribe, and I think there's a lot of value for your career in this. And honestly, I do think if you miss collaboration at this point, you will be left behind. So think about the value in your career, how you can carefully craft what you want to present to the world, what you want them to know about you, and then go out and do it in a way that really stirs up the industry and creates something positive. So that's all I have for you today. And I guess we have a little bit of time for Q&A.
That was fantastic, Priscilla. My brain's like churning in terms of, my own social presence and really where I should be focused. So thank you for all those pointers and an excellent presentation.